right, in this video, we're going to talk about iPads and Cubasis 3.3, newest version of the software that just came out in the last couple of days. And I watched Dom's great video, I'll put a link in the description, on some of the new features, and I was like, you know what? I should probably check this out. I picked up the iPad Pro a few years ago, and I had all these visions of creating music with it, downloading these great new apps, probably spent about 20 minutes on each app, and eventually gave the iPad to my kids to watch Netflix. And which is kind of a shame, you know, this is a very powerful device, but the software just wasn't there. And to be honest, the hardware wasn't there either. I think what's really going to push iPads into the hands of producers, music creators, is the added power of these new iPads that are coming out. So once we get the new iPad, we really might be able to push the limits of software like this, and hopefully the developers will start giving us much better sampled instruments and more powerful editing features, etc. Playing with it for a little while, you're going to see some of the downsides of working with an iPad, but I am very hopeful that software like this is going to get better and better with each new version, and in another 11 years, you know, since the iPad came out, we might see ourselves with larger and larger iPad surfaces where we could be doing most of our work on that surface itself, just like we have currently, but maybe do away with the keyboard and mouse paradigm. Let's get into Cubasis 3.3 and I'll show you what I learned as I played around with it for a day. So here we've got a little song in Cubasis, and I'll just go over my setup, how I've got this all hooked up, and then we'll get into the software. I've got this hooked up with the camera connection kit, of course. So that's our way of getting USB into the old Lightning connector. The newer iPads have USB-C, so that'll be a lot easier to connect peripherals. Right now I have to make sure my kids don't drain the battery on this thing because I only have one way of hooking it up to my audio interface, which is a huge pain because then I can't charge it at the same time. So that's going into my Steinberg UR22 Mark II audio interface. And this is getting kind of old now, but it's a great device in the sense that it hooks up to iPads and iPhones. And that was how I recorded some really basic audio into the iPad. And that worked pretty much seamlessly. I did notice with my project, I've got a bunch of virtual instruments in here that once I started pushing things a little too hard, some things would start to drop out. I'm using a program called BeatHawk for the drums, and that one would just kind of cut out every once in a while. I'd have to restart everything, you know, close the apps and then start them up again. And then also when I was recording audio, I noticed some really crazy glitchy stuff happening. And I think you're just going to have issues until you get the new iPads. So you still can do a lot of stuff on these older iPads, but I think the new iPads are going to be the way to go for sure if you want to push this stuff to the limit. So what did I pick up as well? I picked up the Moog synthesizer. So I've got the Model D here, and I can just click this little button here. We can see what that one's all about. I think I paid 20 bucks for that app. It's got a ton of really great patches built into it. Really nice synthesizer. So I was really impressed with that one. And then I went and found some drum sounds. And I found that the stuff that comes with Cubasis, they've got a bunch of virtual drum machines, and I didn't find anything that worked perfectly for this song. I've seen some kind of crunchy, lo-fi sounding drums for this one, and I just couldn't find anything in the stuff that came with it. They've got like some 909s, 808s, and stuff like that. I found this one called BeatHawk, and it's made by UVI, who make, you know, great virtual instruments and stuff. And we just crashed. Guess I'll just wait for that to restart. There's my BeatHawk drums. So good latency. I have this thing hooked up through MIDI through my Steinberg interface. So again, I only need one thing going USB to my iPad in this case. And then you double click on it and you can see your drums down here. And I gotta say, one of the things that I found the most frustrating working with the older Cubasis was the ability to edit and move things around. And they've done a few improvements here that look small but are actually quite huge. So if you're moving stuff around with this new version, you can see right here how easy it is to kind of navigate, pinch and zoom and all that. But if I'm moving a note around, if I just want to move this somewhere else, First, we have our snap right here, and the grid is turned off, so I'm going to set that to 1/8 notes. And then you'll see what, of course, what you can do is resize the length of notes. You can move notes around. Well, if you are zoomed out, I'm going to zoom this way so that we have more notes. So what you can do is hold down X move, and now it's only going to let you move left or right. Or I could do Y move, and now it's only going to let you move up and down, which is fantastic. I could also just hold the length, and now I'm not going to do anything else because we've got these big fat fingers compared to a very precise mouse pointer. And that is one of the things we learned when we all first got our iPads and iPhones, was just like, this finger thing keeps getting in the way. So having subtle little changes like this is fantastic and really does make it a lot easier to edit the notes. And to me, that might be one of the most important things, is the ability to really easily and quickly edit MIDI information. So next thing I did was just grab some loops, drop them in, and this loop you can see I sped up. So if I go over to media, and then if I go to audio, and then I go to my audio files, double click on that, and you can see some loops that I just imported onto the iPad. Very easy. If I turn on autoplay, I can hear the loop, and then I can drag and drop the loop onto a track. And then now you can see that it doesn't quite fit the tempo of my project, so I can click the stretch button, leave it on manual, and then I can grab this right here and stretch it out, and now it's going to stretch it out exactly 109% so that it lines up with the beat of my project. Pretty easy to do some time stretching and stuff like that. I've got another little beat, another loop I made actually in iMachine that I imported there, and then I've got a couple other loops that come in later on. Next, I've got some synthesizers, and you'll see this little snowflake, which is the classic freeze icon from Cubase. And if you click that button right there, it's going to turn whatever your virtual instrument is into audio. And the nice thing is that it brings that audio into your track and allows you to edit it, unlike freezing a track in Cubase. In this case, just automatically makes an audio track for you. I've got a Mersenne virtual instrument in here as well. So this is one that I bought on the iPad a long time ago. Really nice kind of FM sounding, bell sounding synthesizer. So how do you add a virtual instrument that you've purchased onto a track? So you just click the little add button right here. I can go an audio track, a MIDI track, or now we have group tracks in the new version. So I'm going to click a MIDI track. And there's my new MIDI track right there. I'm going to click on this little icon in the inspector, and here I can go and choose from my different instruments. So you can see we have audio units, and then we've also got inter-app audio, and that is how Sample Tank works. Pretty nice. You just click on the little icon right there, and then Sample Tank opens in the background. So you go in here, choose your instrument, go back to Cubasis, and work with it just like an audio units app. So let's go look at the instruments that come with Cubasis or can be purchased extra with Cubasis. We have the classic machines, which are, a bunch of drum machines. And you can play it with these little pads here, or you can click on the pads up here. It feels pretty good, pretty tight, pretty responsive, even though I have lots of stuff going on in this project. So I am impressed with the latency and the immediacy of these things. So that's the classic machines. We've also got this Microsonic, and this must be kind of like the Hallian Sonic scaled down even more. And the sounds are just really basic. So let's go to like classic electric piano. Not bad. Mellow electric piano. Clavinet. Let's go to the piano. bad, but again, just not spectacular. And I really feel like this is the limitations of these old iPads. You know, when you're talking about sub-terabyte storage on a device like this, Cubasis couldn't afford to be this app that took up, 400 gigabytes of space, because it just wasn't possible. Soon it will be. So I'm excited to see where this kind of stuff goes. And we've got synth leads, we've got, cello. It's going to be a while before we're able to score a movie on an iPad, but it's going to happen. You watch. Let's check out the MIDI sampler. It's got a bunch of kits in here. Most of them are kind of drum sounds, and then a few other instruments in here, electric piano, and then a grand piano. Okay, and then we also have this microlog, which I got to say sounds really, really good. So I think this is a Steinberg synthesizer. Some really good sounds on this. And as far as assigning control to a parameter with some kind of MIDI device, that is also very easy. So we'll go over to the filter, and then I'm going to click this setup button right here. And then I'm going to click on MIDI, and I'm going to go MIDI learn. Now I'm going to close this just for a second. I'm going to go back to my instrument. And I'm going to go to filter and assign this knob right here to this slider right here. And that's it. So now I can go back to setup and turn off the MIDI learn. And now I've got this assigned to my filter. Pretty simple to assign MIDI parameters. And then the other thing I'll talk about is recording audio and editing audio still has a long ways to go. We can't do things like comping, but even simple things like crossfading. I thought for sure I was missing something, but there's no way to crossfade audio. What you'd actually have to do is you'd actually have to make two separate tracks, fade one out, and then on the other track, fade it in. But I did watch Dom's most recent video, and he was showing that new Waves plugin, and it costs a few dollars, so I had to buy this thing, and allows you to analyze the pitch of actual incoming audio, and then use MIDI to go and turn it into any other pitch that you want. So I don't play saxophone. I had somebody on my channel say, man, you're way cooler than I thought you were. You play saxophone. And the truth is I don't really play the saxophone. So I thought, well, I'm going to play a note on the saxophone. And by the way, I am practicing sax, so expect to see me playing it more in the future. But I played my my one note on the saxophone on this track, and it sounds like this. It's a pretty solid note, if you ask me. So I played that in, and then what I can do is take a MIDI track. So I took this MIDI track right here called Sax Notes. I go back over to my sax track, and I go to Insert Effects, Waves Tune RT, so real time. And it's going to analyze the note and then correct it to whatever my target pitch is from my MIDI input. So we have to click that little guy right here, and then also click this right here, so that it gets audio from sax notes, this one right here. When I do that, I have the notes, sax notes right here. It's just kind of three notes that are changing. So it's not perfect. We can hear some kind of flippy auto-tune stuff happening there, but hey, it's pretty cool. And we're doing this on an iPad. So I did that on 3 different tracks. I duplicated the sax part, and then here we go. Doesn't sound great, but it's something, and would be a really great effect. Like I want to start doing some singing and then maybe do some Herbie Hancock style stuff, I put an electric guitar in there just to try their amp modeling out. And I got to say, again, you're probably better off using something like I've got this Line 6 Pod Go right here. Probably better for me to plug into that and use the amp modeling in that, because the amp modeling on this still pretty bare bones. But that's what I've got for my electric guitar track right here. anyway, so there's my electric guitar, and then I also have a Rhodes track where I played my actual Fender Rhodes. Going direct out of the Rhodes into the audio interface. All right, so let's put it all together, and maybe I'll retrack the Rhodes and maybe add a synthesizer line or something like that, you know, have some fun with it. So you know the drill, hit the subscribe button, the bell if you're new here, and we'll see you in the next video.